Transport PS Irungu Nyakera is now with us this evening. You've had a long day, so appreciate you taking time to speak with us this evening. Yeah. Let's start with the tragedy in Naivasha. What kind of support will the government be offering the families?
I think, Larry, as you said, it's been a very long day for all of us, but I first want to offer the condolences to the families of the bereaved. I'm sure it's been even a worse day for them. In terms of the government, the support that we offer the family, of course, we are offering, we did bring all the bodies to Nairobi, and the families will be identifying them from Monday at Chiromo. Then we're offering counseling for the family and the friends who, of course, are trying to cope with the situation. And then we also assist with the funeral arrangements for the families as well.
The discussion has shifted to why this accident happened. And a lot of people say this truck should not have been using this part of the highway in the first place.
I think, Larry, the reality is, however it may sound, because it probably won't then come out right, is what we had was an accident. And accidents can happen without blames being on certain people. And on this instance is one such instance. The lorry itself was a light lorry, a canter, as we call them, and canters can use and do use the main highway.
It was not required to use the Maimahiu part?
No. The ones that are required are the large trucks and the trailers. The others actually use the main highway.
The other question regarding this is, why are there bumps when you're approaching a sharp bend? Because it's a Class A highway, so these should not exist.
Larry, if we go back to January, actually it was when I had actually just started with the ministry, and there was a real outcry within the same region, the Karai section, and documented with actually NTV had aired that they were experiencing at least 5 to 10 accidents per week in that section. And so the local leadership and the community actually approached us and as a ministry and said that they, through NTSA, that they wanted to have an erection of speed bumps. With that is when we got Kenha through the engineers, and they ended up erecting the bumps where they did. Before the bumps, they actually also put up the rubber strips to ensure that even as someone is approaching these bumps, they can actually already start slowing down in advance. They also put up signage. There might be argument that it's not adequate, but there is signage in terms of where the bump is. So the bumps, they do serve a certain purpose. This has happened, is the first time. As I mentioned, this was put up in January. We're in December. It's the first such accident. So I think they have served a purpose. And I think the reality is this was an accident.
The wider question is why bumps exist on highways at all. Is it the best way to slow down traffic and to avoid accidents, especially in kind of dangerous areas like these? Because like we were just showing you on Thika Road, there's the same problem on the highway, the bumps, and they're getting abused.
The reason the bumps, for example, if you go to Thika Road, you'll see that every place where pedestrians are crossing is actually where we erect the bumps. Once we put up a footbridge, we actually remove the bumps, as happened just next to Githurai. As soon as we erected the footbridge, we removed the bumps. I think this is really for safety of the pedestrians, and as we have budgets within the next financial year to put up more of these footbridges. So I think until we're able to actually facilitate the pedestrians, it's going to be difficult to actually remove all the bumps on the highways.
Are there any other measures available? I think the question is to make sure that you don't endanger the lives of motorists or pedestrians and still make sure that you regulate speed on highways especially.
I think in terms of, it's really about the use of the roads, because the road is to be used by all the different stakeholders. So in this case, the pedestrians as well as the drivers. For the drivers, we have the signage. We also have, as we said, the rubble, the bumps, and it's really for us, for the drivers, to actually start obeying some of these road signs and following them. In very many instances, even if you put speed signs, the drivers actually don't really obey them. So I think from us ourselves, I think there's need for us to create that culture of actually obeying such
and where is the gap? Is it in enforcement? Because if the regulations exist and the signs exist and they're still getting flouted, shouldn't there be penalties for that?
Yes, I think it's one is we can't have enforcers everywhere. So, and that's why we have the signage. If you look at the entire corridor from Nairobi to Naivasha, the enforcement is really just closer to Naivasha. The same location where those bumps were put up, the community as well as the leadership before were saying that the reasons the government does not want to erect the bumps is because the police want to take their bribes because of the speed guns. But then as soon as they erected, now it's a different story. So I think on the enforcement side, we are trying our best, but it can't be everywhere. I think it's the role of us as citizenry to also follow the law.
What measures is your ministry putting in place to make sure that something like this does not happen again, if any?
I think to begin with, I think, as I mentioned, this is one where it was really an accident, and one which I would actually call a freak accident, because really all the conditions were such that there's nobody who can actually be blamed for not have actually done their bit. So as per regulation and policy, there really isn't much that we can say about this specific instance. However, on the other issues of road safety, I think we are going through a much broader road safety campaign, because we realize that the users of the road are the ones who need first to be advised and enlightened on actually the proper use of roads, be it the drivers on obeying the signage and the various laws, or the road users, the pedestrians, to know where to cross and where not to cross.
So I want to take two quick questions for you from social media, because there's a lot of concern about this. One is Okuge wonders why the tankers move at night, whereas there's a 6 o'clock deadline.
Maybe to repeat myself, it was not a tanker. It was actually a canter. And two, there is actually no ban on night travel for canters. That was a few years back, and that was lifted.
Kel, I think this is J.K. May, says, ask the guest whether locals take precedence over professionalism on selecting ideal location to build bumps. And two, somebody else wondered, who approves these bumps? Are they engineers, or are they just general people who work within one of your agencies?
The bumps were actually, they were put up by Kenya, so certainly professional. Kenya works with the engineers to establish where to put up the bumps, and yeah, so certainly it's through professionals that these bumps are put up.
Okay, and finally, Juliet Njoroge says, this is not just about one incident. This is about life-threatening, how life-threatening driving on Kenyan roads is, and that's the wider problem as we finish.
Yes.
It's still life-threatening to drive on Kenyan roads. There's a lot of hazards. You could get killed in 7 different ways.
I agree, Larry, and that's why I'm saying we need to look at it broadly as what do we need to do to address this much bigger problem. If you look at the numbers as of October, as of 8th of December, we had actually dropped in terms of the number of road deaths by about 4% from last year to this year. And the areas where we've seen the biggest drop is actually in pedestrian as well as PSV deaths. And the areas where we still are seeing an increase is the motorcycles, the border borders. We are seeing an increase in personal vehicles and also on commercial, like the one that we just saw today. And that's why we are looking at beyond regulation. What else do we need to do? Because the regulations are there. I think on the enforcement side, we need to do a lot more on the enforcement. And that's why we have the instant fines. We brought those on board and a few other things that we're doing. But I think broadly speaking, there's still quite a bit that we need to do, but mostly around user education.
So to recap, I need to make sure we understand this. You said this is a freak accident. So it is in your view, nobody's to blame for this accident?
The person, in this case, we really don't we don't know the state that the driver was in, for example, because it could have been that the driver was new to this highway, or probably even intoxicated. We don't know. And that's probably why they also didn't see the bumps. As I mentioned, we have even rumble strips before the bump, so someone should be able
But insufficient signage. So even the rumble strips might exist there, but somebody just, you just arrive on them, you didn't realize they were there because the signage is either insufficient or completely non-existent.
We can say it is inadequate, but there's actually a signage of a bump right next to where the double strips are.
So from a government perspective, you don't think anybody's responsible should take responsibility for this?
I think what it does is there's a lot of learning that we take from it. But in terms of saying that we are portioning blame to a certain agency, not at this point.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for coming in tonight. Irungu Nyakera, Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Transport.